I thought I'd do this review of this single post mobile lift. It's from Automotech. I've had it now for 3 or 4 months, and if you're like me, you use YouTube to research on any product you're going to buy, and of course there's nothing on YouTube about these, so I thought I'll do this video now because it might help someone else in the future if you're thinking of buying one of these. So I've never owned a lift before, so I can't compare with other products, but I didn't want a fixed lift. I don't lift cars that often. I wanted something portable that I could get to the corner of the workshop, get out of the way, and not take up floor space. And this is great because it's very manoeuvrable. It is heavy, but it's very manoeuvrable, and you can drive a car up onto it, or you can just wheel this around between other cars and hook it up under the car, so it's great for that respect. And if you're only lifting vehicles occasionally, or you're really tight for space, or your floor isn't good enough to have a fixed lift, this is ideal. But you do still need a very flat floor, but for what it's intended for, it's been absolutely brilliant. So the reason why I chose this was for 2 things primarily. Firstly, the price. This was incredibly cheap, and I'll go into that in a minute. And secondly, because it included a set of legs for the rubber pads, and maybe others do as well, but they didn't show it. So you get this smaller one, medium sized one, and then this huge one. These are really heavy as well, solid metal, very, very strong. And the reason is because I'm lifting electric cars, and you've got a battery pack hanging underneath, and I wanted to make sure that the pads could clear the battery pack, so that metal arm or beam wasn't touching the pack underneath. The reality is the cars don't have enough clearance to get these underneath. These are only any good for a 4x4 or a van, but I'm frequently using this one and occasionally using this one, and it's a godsend because it just means I can clear that battery pack. So the pads are adjustable. Let's just do this one-handed, because you've got about a 40cm adjustment on the pad. It's not a huge amount, but of course that's where these come in, and then it's fine. I do have a set of rubber blocks as well I use occasionally, particularly if I can't get the pad in the right place, particularly on very small vehicles like something like a Smart 4.2, then I can jack up with some rubber pads on the arms. But generally I don't have a problem with any of this. What is surprising is the centre of gravity mustn't exceed this line, but actually that line is a long way out, and if you were to hang a car that far out it would feel very scary, but obviously it's designed to work like that. So when I was first looking for a mobile lift, the reason why this one stood out was price primarily. So I was a little bit wary, thinking of course it's got to be Chinese and it's going to be poor quality. So I spoke to Automotech. They said that this is their own design, been selling them for years, don't have any problems, and they keep the spares. So that was sort of good enough for me. I should say keep the spares in the UK, and the product was stocked in the UK. When it arrived, it came in a big metal frame, a crate almost, got dropped off with a crane from the lorry, and God, it was heavy. We couldn't move it, we didn't have a forklift, and we had to assemble it. So the assembly was simple. Being Chinese, I was sort of expecting poor quality and maybe some threads not lining up, some of the bolts not lining up, and you know what it's like, you always have to sort of adapt things a little bit. But I was surprised. This was absolutely faultless. Everything, all the threads were right, all the bolts were there, it all lined up. It just went together really simply, and it's surprisingly high quality. However, this beam or column was incredibly heavy. That weighs nearly, I don't know, nearly a ton. And it was laying vertical on the crate, and we had to get it upright and get it up onto the base, and we didn't have a forklift, and God, we struggled. It took nearly all day to get that upright using various bits of timber and jacks and all sorts, and then we had to get it onto the base, so we covered the blue frame with grease, so when it was standing upright we could then slide it across, because we didn't want it to topple. Once we got it there, it lined up beautifully, and you got these huge Allen key bolts to bolt it all down, but there's some serious weight in that, and of course that's how it all works, because quite surprisingly this blue base is very small, very little overhangs there to stop a vehicle toppling, and a very small platform here. It's quite surprising that you can hang a car on that and it doesn't wobble, but of course it all works by the weight of this pushing down into the ground. And at first I was a bit uneasy when I was putting cars up high and getting underneath, but I'm used to it now and it's not a problem, and it works incredibly well, even though that just looks way too short. The things to note: it doesn't come with oil, so you needed, I think that was 5 litres of oil, and it doesn't come with a cable or a plug, of course. So you get your control box here, you have to mount up onto the column, and you have to supply your own cable, and the instructions or the website from Automotech didn't tell you that. It wasn't a problem. I've put 2.5mm 10 metres of cable, so I could move it anywhere around the workshop, and that cable's long enough. But it would have been nice to have known that, so I'd have got that ready, and at the end of day one it would have been built and in use. But of course I then had to go and get oil and a flex. So very quickly, the way it works is pretty obvious really. We have wheels on the front here, solid steel wheels, and then wheels at the back on this pallet truck arrangement. You've got to keep the lever in to jack it up, so as soon as you let go it will drop down for safety, and all you're doing is lifting the back foot off the ground, and now it's just sitting on those front feet, and then you can maneuver it, and it is incredibly maneuverable considering how much it weighs, and this concrete isn't particularly smooth, and yeah, it's really simple to move around. Occasionally if there's a little stone it will get stuck, which you'd expect, but if your concrete floor is good then this is just a breeze to move around considering how much it weighs. So this is 240 volt single phase. What else can I tell you? Oh, it lifts 2.5 tonne, 2,500 kilos, and then round here the motor, is any of this any use? 2,850 RPM, one phase, 14 amp motor, made by Duro Manufacturing Company Limited, assuming it's Chinese as well. But yeah, on that point, got no issues with the quality. Everything just seems surprisingly good quality for how much I paid for it. So let's now discuss price. This was only £1,800 plus VAT plus delivery, and it's a real surprise the quality of this for that amount of money, and it's considerably cheaper than others out there, and I'm really pleased. It's so much better than I was expecting. It does the job really well, and as I said, I've been using this 3 or 4 months now and still really impressed with how much this has cost and how good it is. It does also come with these ramps, a pair of them either side, which you can hook onto those arms, and then it allows you to drive a car up onto it rather than moving the lift to the vehicle. Personally, I don't use them. They are very heavy, I can't lift it with one hand. And again, very high quality. When the lift is in its lowest position, there's an adjustable pin here which is lifting this up, which frees the toothed gear, which allows you to move the arm in and out. There's not a huge amount of adjustment on these. That's as far as it goes. I do sometimes wish they moved a few more inches, but you know, I've never been able to not lift a vehicle. Adjust the front arms, you've got to squeeze the lever in. There's a spring in here. That spring is very tight. The way it works normally is I end up laying on the ground and pushing that with my foot while I adjust the arm. That spring is a bit too tight, to be honest, but the amount of adjustment you get on the arm is a little bit better than the back ones, and I found all this to be fine, to be honest. I have removed this handle on the other side. You don't need these handles, and they get in the way when you're looking under the sills of a car to see where to put the pad. This, you bang your head on this, so I'm actually going to remove that handle as well, because obviously when it's in its down position these move freely anyway, so you don't need any extra grab handle to move it because there's no friction. So let's lift a vehicle. I'm lifting a Renault Zoe here, and I've got the smallest, the shortest adapters on every pad, and got it plugged in, so we switch it on and send it up. So I can't lift it any higher because I'm in quite a low building, but it does go that much higher. I find that it goes, because previously I was in a taller workshop, it does go high enough. Maybe it would be handy if it went a fraction higher if you're a little bit taller, but to be honest, working any higher your hands are going to ache very, very quickly, so it's perfectly adequate. But I did notice that some other lifts do lift another inch or two taller, but this is fine and it's not an issue, and certainly for me it's not an issue because I can't lift that high anyway. But as we can see there, the beam is clearing the battery pack by about 3 inches, so yeah, it does exactly what I need it to do. But yeah, it's quite surprising that small base will support a car. We've obviously got this centre line here where it says you mustn't go over that. I'm quite a long way from it, that's about there. If you had a car further over, it really would feel unsafe, but obviously it works by the weight of that column pushing down there. But yeah, there we go. If I just get back a little bit, it does the job. When it comes to dropping it down, we've got the cable here to release the safety latch or ratchet, whatever you call it, and then the second hand you then pull that, but actually that stayed in, so I'm doing it one-handed, which is what you probably shouldn't do. But as you can see, with the weight of the vehicle on, it comes down pretty quick, nice and smooth, no juddering. It all just works really well. The thing worth mentioning is I did move premises about 2 months ago and managed to move this. We got it onto a low plant trailer. We did have to use a winch, we just used a hand winch, but we got it up in there, strapped it down and moved it. It was only about 4 miles down the road, so it didn't get too much rattling, but it all survived. And of course the big advantage was there wasn't anything to deconstruct and reconstruct and fix to the floor. It was nice and simple to move, so that's another advantage of a portable lift like this. So I hope that video helped someone, and if you're looking for a single post lift, then I really highly recommend this. But obviously I haven't had any other lift before, got no experience to compare it with others, so you can take this video with a big pinch of salt, but I'm mightily impressed with this for how much this cost.